How's that? That seems loud.
It is.
Turn it down.
Yeah.
I can't. It
How
sounds.
about that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, that's good. So if you've got your Bibles today, we're going to talk a little bit about John chapter 6. This is something that we've talked about a lot already. You're going to go, well, you ran out of time, did you? And so we're going to talk about feeding of the 5,000. You must have ran out of time. And so this is an easy one. We've talked about it a bit. Well, you got busy plowing snow, I understand. And so maybe you worked a little bit longer at work or something happened and you didn't have enough time. So we're going to talk about John chapter 6. But this isn't true. It's something that I think that each one of us, we're going to see a little something different in John chapter 6. So if you got your Bibles, we're going to read. So it says, right off in verse 1, sometime after this, we're going to get back to this. Because what do you mean, sometime after this? After this? After what? So sometime after this, Jesus crossed the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the miraculous signs he had performed on the sick. So that's what you do. This is what you do when people are following him because of the miraculous signs that they have seen Jesus doing with the sick. So this is what we do. Your first confrontation, your first introduction to Jesus is you follow him. You become close to him. You kind of get close to him because you are trying to see what he can do for you. This is what you do at the beginning. When you first see Christ, when you first come to Christ, it's what can he do for you? So these people are going, what can he do for us? Well, he's done this with the sick. What else can he do for us? Later on in life, as you grow as a believer, it changes a little bit. Not that you don't have, we have prayer requests. What can God do for us? But as you mature in Christ, it goes as well. There's something else included. What can he do for us? What can he do through us? So it changes as you mature as a Christian, is what can you do? And so you say a prayer, and then all of a sudden, and once in a while I notice that my prayers sometimes are like a kid in a candy store. I want that, I want this, I want that, right? Have you ever noticed that sometimes when you go, Lord, and can you do this, and can you do that, and can you do this? But as a mature Christian, it's yes, can you help me with these things? But also it's, what can you do for me, Lord, and what can you do through me? So this is where we're at. These people are like, what can you do for us? And so here they come. They'd heard about these miraculous signs on the sick, and then Jesus went up on a mountainside, and he sat down with his disciples, and the Jewish Passover feast was near. He was trying to get a break. He was trying, he was going, we'll see, because at the first it said, sometime after this. We're going to find out what this is. But they were going, the disciples needed a bit of calming down because some stuff had happened. And so he goes there, and he wants to speak to the disciples. And I'm not saying that Jesus can't get a break, but I'm just saying he was going to take some time and work with his disciples and speak through some of the stuff that had happened. But here comes this crowd. You can't get, adults here with young children. Alicia, you can't get that break where it's like, finally, I've calmed the kids all down. Finally, I can go have a shower. But then you hear knock, knock, knock on the shower. You can't get that break. That's what I'm talking about. And so when Jesus looked up and he saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? Jesus asked the question, what are we going to do? Jesus, the Messiah, was messing with Philip, for he had already knew what he was going to do. And it says that. So when Jesus looked up and he saw this great crowd, he's like, Philip, Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? He asked this only to test him, for he was already had in mind what he was going to do. So he already knew what he was going to do, but he said, it's time to test some of these guys. They've been following me around a little bit. What are we going to do? Maybe they'll give me a good answer. So Philip, being the accountant, he gets out his calculator and he does calculations. And this is what he says. Philip answered him, 8 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each one of these to have a bite. So it's 5,000 people, plus it's men, plus it's women and little crumb-eating kids. Okay, so this is all these. That's not to diss you guys. I'm trying to, you understand that. Okay? But there's a lot of them. Well, if 8 months' wages, we maybe be close to everybody having a bite. What are we going to do, Philip? Jesus says he's messing. The Messiah is messing with Philip. He already had in mind what he was going to do. And Philip answered, well, this is near impossible. He gets his calculator, near impossible. Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon, Peter's brother, spoke up. Here is a boy with 5 small loaves of barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many? Jesus answered, have the people sit down, and there was plenty of grass in that place. So there was lots of grass, but there wasn't much food. And the men sat down, and about 5,000 of them, and Jesus took the loaves. How many loaves? 5? And how many fish? 2. So not many. He took a little bit. Jesus took this little bit, and he gave thanks. Are you able to give thanks with a little? Where you're at right now, you might have a little. Are you still able to give thanks? In Jesus' hands, what happens when he gives thanks? It multiplies. And he distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted, and he did the same with the fish. And when they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, gather the pieces that are left over. Okay, so we had 5 loaves, 5 barley loaves. By the way, barley loaves are the cheapest. They're the ones, they are not, barley loaves are not sourdough. It's not, what's some good bread? Pumpernickel. It's not even that. What else is there good stuff out there? Fancy bread. This is the cheapest bread. And he says, eat all this, you 5,000 men and women and children. How are you feeling now? Do you want seconds? No, thank you. Do you want dessert? No, I don't want dessert. I am full. I don't want dessert. Okay, let's pick it up. Let's not waste it. Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted. So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. By the way, do you just see this? And I asked somebody this the other day. Filled them up with the 12 baskets. Where did the 12 baskets even come from? Could it have been Jesus already knew what he was going to do? And maybe he put those 12 baskets in the boat as he went over. Jesus already knew what he was going to do. Where did these 12 baskets come from? Jesus already knew what he was going to do. I think he put the 12 baskets in the boat as he went over there because he knew what he was going to do. So there we go. What we have here is the disciples are now, they're running into, there's a collision course here of what we have 5 loaves and 2 fish. Not bad for a family. We could make that work, but not for this amount of people. What are we going to do? We do not, Jesus is like, what are we going to do? Philip says we don't have enough. 8 months, right? Not even a bite, hardly a bite. We don't have enough. We live in a world right now that we do, this is this mantra that we live in, never enough. Did anybody wake up this morning and went, I didn't get enough sleep? Anybody wake up and say that? You said that this morning? How about this week? You know when you're going to work and you get up early and it's like, I didn't get enough sleep. Right? You know that feeling? Where you didn't get enough sleep? And then at the end of the day, you didn't have enough time to get everything done in that day. Anybody ever run into that? I didn't have enough time. I ran out of time. And then you're doing, at the end of, whenever you do your bills and however that works, we didn't have enough money this month. Didn't have enough. This is I call it a mantra, whatever you want to call it. This is a kind of a thing that we live in nowadays, not enough. And so now these disciples, they recognize that they don't have enough, but it is a collision course with the one who is more than enough, who takes a little bit and he breaks it. And remember this, it has to be broken first before it's multiplied. Sometimes we feel broken, but that's how Jesus is going to multiply in our life. He has to break us. Sometimes he has to crush us. T.D. Jakes wrote a book about the crushing and how important it is to be crushed in order to be used by God. Doesn't sound fun, but that's how he does multiply. And so they have this collision course. They have seen Jesus, and what Jesus is saying is, I am the bread of life. We're gonna see that. I am the bread of life. Give me a little bit of bread and watch me multiply it. If you're in a famine in the desert, I will make sure that there will be birds that will drop off food for you if you are in position to receive it. I will look after you. There's many stories about if you only, how much oil do you have? I got in a little teeny bit. Well, you know what? That's enough. I can make it enough. With Jesus, it's not enough. That's not his mantra. His mantra is never not enough. He always has more. So you got a little bit of oil, but you better go to Lynn's and see if she's got some extra cans. You better go to Cindy's, see if she's got some extra glasses. You better go over to Renee and Rick's and see if there's a couple extra bottles, because you know what? You're going to start pouring. And the bread of life is going to be there, and that little bit is going to be more than enough, and you're going to fill every jar up. These are stories in the Bible. You're never going to run out with Jesus. And that is a collision course with this world that we live in. I don't have enough. And so these disciples, they're running into this. They're trying to make sense of this. And there's these promises that we run into in the Bible. There's all these promises, and he is the bread of life, and that I am more than enough. Remember when he turned the water into wine, his first miracle? At that wedding where the guy that was supposed to provide it failed, and they ran out, and this is a bad thing. And Sharon wasn't here to hear this, I remember, because you need to hear this. If this was at my wedding and I ran out of wine, my mother-in-law could sue me. Could have sued me if I ran back in the Bible days. You know, how is that for, you thought you had family problems. Here we go. This is good. So they ran out. Jesus looked at these 6 canisters, these 6 jugs, and he told them, he didn't tell them, all these things you got to do, he says, just pour water in them. There was more than enough, like 1,000 bottles of wine. When you add up those 25 to 30 gallon jugs, there's 1,000 bottles of wine. He is more than enough. And so this is what they're running to. There's promises that God gives us in the Bible, but they are very much hinged on principles. Just because there's a promise in the Bible, just because Jesus says that I am the bread of life, you will hunger no more. Eat of me, you will hunger no more. I am the living water. There's these things that you will never thirst anymore. There's these promises, but I'm still thirsty. Okay, these promises are hinged on principles or processes that you have to be attached to. You cannot, for example, peace. I want peace in my life. Who doesn't want some peace? Anybody need any peace right now? Need some peace. So this is, okay, he is the peacemaker. He will bring, I am peace. You will have peace in me. These are some promises, but I don't feel like I've got peace. But you cannot go on Facebook, for example. You cannot binge on Facebook. You cannot gouge or gorge your appetite on empty calories of ignorant opinions and then just ask God to wipe them away and give me peace. There is principles that are applied and attached to God's promises. You have to be in position. And so these disciples are learning a little bit about this. So the first thing, so these disciples, they saw Philip was questioned. This guy that's doing all these miracles, he asked me what we should do. Maybe he thinks that I've got something. Maybe he thinks that I could be he must be thinking, wow, he asked me. But I did what I know. I did calculations. There's not a chance. and then he just goes and does it, and he feeds them all, and there's these 12 baskets, and they're full, 12 representing 12 disciples, 12 representing the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 is an important number here. There's 12 baskets left over. And so these disciples are learning that they have to, first of all, lean into what Jesus says. We have to lean into what Jesus says. So now, going back, and I said something about, let's see here. Chapter 6, verse 1. Leaning in, because this is a miracle. There's not many miracles that are that transfer across all 4 Gospels. Of course, in all the Gospels, there's miracles, and there's parables and all that stuff. There's all these things going on. There's all these miracles, but there is very few that are in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But this miracle is. And you think, well, why is this one? Because there's a lot of other ones that were way. Not that this is a cool miracle. Feeding the 5,000, that's cool. But there's some other cooler ones. What about, the lame person on the stretcher bed that they take in and drop through the roof? Why isn't that in all, and he gets healed, why isn't that in all 4 Gospels? Or maybe that daughter who passed away, and then Jesus walks in and tells everybody else to get out of the room, and then all of a sudden you hear the people are outside going, what's he doing in there? Because I know that body was cold. I know when he went in there, I checked that girl, she was dead, but I can hear little feet, and I can hear laughing. Why isn't that one in every Gospel? Or even the raising of Lazarus. That's a big one. Because all they knew about Jesus was that Jesus was a healer. But now he missed his healing. Get together with Martha and Mary. And he says, you know what? It's not about healing. You've got to learn something different right now. I'm more than just a healer. I am the resurrection. Why is that not in all 4 Gospels? But this one, about 5,000, feeding of the 5,000, plus women and children, this is in every one. And it says, sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of Galilee. Sometime after this. What is this? Sometime after this, if you look at Matthew, and you look at some other Gospels, it talks about John the Baptist was beheaded. So John the Baptist was the forerunner of Jesus Christ. He was the one, the voice in the desert, speaking of a coming Messiah. And so he was. We know about John the Baptist, and he was the forerunner. And he was beheaded by a king who refused to listen to the truth. He didn't want to listen to the truth. And so John the Baptist was beheaded. And so these people are like, the disciples are like, afraid a little bit. This is sometime after this is the beheading of John the Baptist. So Jesus is like, I'm going to take you guys. I'm going to talk. I've got to talk to you and tell you that it's okay. And this is when the crowd comes. And the disciples are like, they got to lean in. For each one of us, sometimes we got to lean in. We got to lean into what God's saying and what God's doing. And so the disciples are a little afraid. Jesus hasn't talked too much about this beheading of John the Baptist, the forerunner of Jesus Christ. Sometimes your greatest opportunities will come at the times that are the most inconvenient for you. And so this is inconvenient. All these people showing up and we didn't bring any food. This is inconvenient, but sometimes and many times the greatest opportunities will come by at the most inconvenient time in your life. And the question is, do you trust God or do you trust stuff? This is the question. And so the disciples have to figure this out. And sometimes, many times in our life, we will push away. Because look this. In Matthew chapter 14, I think that's where it is, the disciples said, send them away. Send them away. Like we can't do it. Just send them away. It's getting close to the end of the day. Just tell them to go. God. Sometimes in our life, we will push away the very thing that we have asked God to supply in our life by the prayers, through the prayers that we have asked Him. We will actually try to push them away. But the disciples have joined Jesus for a reason, because they saw that there's something really awesome about him that's different than anyone else. And they thought, listen, he said, come follow us. Come follow me, Jesus said. So we're going to come and we're going to be a part of this. We want to make a difference. But because you've said, we want to make a difference, now there's time to make a difference. Yet they're looking for a way out. Isn't that kind of funny? We want to follow Jesus, and he's still the same one that did those miracles. But right now, I don't know. Who do you trust? God, or do you trust stuff? And right now, they're like going, send those, like, Jesus. The thing with Jesus is, we're on this mountainside, and we're talking, and here comes this crowd, and we're like, send them away. We don't have, the accountant said we don't stand a chance. But there's Jesus. He's unreasonable. Because he's doing his thing, and he goes, oh, hi, who needs to be healed? Who needs to be healed? Who needs to change in their life? That's what Jesus does. He's like, I got all the time in the world. I'm eternal. And the disciples are going, how are we going to do this? Been there? How are we going to do this? Ever been there? How are we going to do this? And so this is what the disciples are fighting with right now. This is this inconvenience that they want to send away. The very provision that God may want to send to you may come through an inconvenience. And so it is with us. Maybe the thing that you need to hear the most, the very thing that you need to hear the most is the word that you resist the most. It may be the one that causes discomfort in your soul, tension in your soul, but remember, tension builds strength. And so you push it away, and you close your arms, and it's not even about your position of your physical position, but it's of your heart. And so your heart, where your heart is, so there will you find also your treasure. Where your treasure is, so there also you will find your heart. And so we some of these things that we need to hear, some of the most important things that we need to hear are the ones that we will resist the most. Forgive that person. I ain't doing it. Ever been there? I'm not doing it. You know what he did to me? I'm not forgiving him. But Jesus says, you know what? These are promises. I forgive you. But you know what? Remember, if you want me to forgive you, you're going to be able to forgive them. And so these are the ones that hurt the most. Or I don't know, it can be all kinds of things. It can be tithing. Oh, here we go. Talking about tithing again. And I'm not, God doesn't want your money, and I'm not preaching it. It's not about that. I'm just saying this is one where you go, oh, yeah, here we go again. I've heard this one before. But do you think that God is going to save your soul and then just let you sit there and not stretch you and let you grow? He wants you to grow. And so these are the various places where he will stretch your faith so that you will grow. Like last week, and when your faith grows, the church grows. And then you see the church grow, and it's like your faith grows. And then and then the kingdom grows, your faith grows. And it all goes together. Actually, there are two dynamics that work together. As your faith grows, and so does your faith grows, the church grows, and it moves out into the community. Those are dynamics that work together. We learned that from Paul last week. And so these are the things that we run into, these dynamics of do you trust God or do you trust stuff? And they have run into this. So luckily, Jesus takes care of it. And so forgive. See, I want to be a Christian, and I want to be a part of this show. I want to be a part of following Christ. But what do you mean? You want to stretch me? Like, these disciples are getting stretched. I thought it was like Burger King. Have it your own way. I just want it my way. But no, God says, my way. And when he does it, he will stretch you. He won't break you. Sometimes you'll feel like you're getting broke, but he's not going to break you. He will stretch you. And when muscles get stretched, they get stronger. Because the little pieces in there, the little fibers break, but then they remend and they get stronger and stronger. Maybe it changes at 50, I'm not sure. But when I was young, that's how you develop muscle. When you stretch, when you hurt. So this is what Jesus wants us to do. It's not Burger King, have it your own way. It's do it his way. And so we have to lean in. We have to lean into what he says. And sometimes it hurts, And sometimes it's the word that you hear is the one you don't want to hear, and you will resist the most. And so, we got to lean in to what Jesus says, but also we got, let's read this. Verse 5. Now let's read verse 3 first. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside, so he went up on a mountainside. He went up high. And he sat down with the disciples, and the Jewish Passover feast was near, and when Jesus looked up, so now he looked up, but honestly, really, he looked down, because the crowd was coming, he was on a mountainside, he looked up, but at the same time, he's still up here, and they're down here. We need to sometimes, with the things that come along in our life, with the things that sideswipe us, the things that catch us off guard, even the things that don't catch us off guard, we have to look down. That's not looking down over your nose. I'm not saying that. I'm saying sometimes we have to look down. Jesus was looking down at this crowd of people that had come because they heard about the healings of the sick. They wanted, what can you do for me, Jesus? They're at that stage, the first stage. And he's looking down at them. He's looking down at them from the perspective of heaven. And he sees this inconvenience as an opportunity to show himself and the love of the Father to these people. But if we look at things that come, if we look at things that are just on our level, on my life level, it's an inconvenience, it's a pain in the rear, it's like, because it's just all about me and how you're messing up my time, my free time. But if we can look down, not down at people, don't get me wrong, don't go home and just start looking down at your wife. And this is speaking of wives and stuff. You gotta get this though. This, and I forgot to say it, was when we lean into the teachings of God. And I might say something, and you lean in. But you lean in for somebody else. Oh yeah, my wife needs to hear that. And so you hear it. Marty's saying something. Oh yeah, I got to tell my wife about that. She needs to clean up this area in her life. Or or something like where you lean in. Oh, this is for my neighbor down the road. But maybe it's for you to lean in and hear it for yourself. So, anyways, I just want to get that in there. That when you lean in for yourself as well. It's not you're leaning in so you can tell your wife that she's wrong, or you can tell your neighbor that he's wrong. You lean in for yourself. And so now looking down, don't go home and look down at your wife and say that you're wrong. Look down like this, but look down from heaven's perspective. Because that's when an inconvenience looks like an opportunity. Jesus had all the time in the world as he could look down. But when we look at it on the line of the straight line of where we are, and we're so busy. Remember, we don't have time. I didn't get any sleep. I'm out of money, and you're asking me for something. But we're not looking from the perspective of heaven. Always look down. Look down from heaven's perspective. This is this whole thing about Philip. He looks at Philip. Jesus looks at Philip and says, "What are we going to do?" Right? The Messiah was messing with Philip. What are we going to do, Philip? Expecting, maybe he's learned something, and maybe he knows that I can do something here. Instead, he gets out his calculator. He does what he knows best. And we always do that. Many times when something comes our way, what are you good at? And so you use that calculation, you use what you're good at, and you try to hit the problem. But we are supposed to look down from heaven's perspective, and there's two different types of processes. There's two types of, call it philosophy or processes. There's bottom up or top down lines of thinking. Now,
That's top down.
top down. So, Philip had bottom up processing, where he was, what are we going to do? What are we going to do, Philip? What are we going to do? And he's like, I don't know what we're going to do, but I'm just going to get out my calculator, and I'm going to go, wait a minute, it's going to take 8 months to give everybody maybe a bite, so this is all I know. I don't know how it's going to happen. All I can know is I look at it, and I'm just going to bring its visual or sensory kind of ideas to it. So, for example, I'm like, how can I get this across as an illustration? What do I know? I know hockey cards. How about you guys? See, you guys don't. So I got something on you guys. So if you looked at this card, Lynn, so this is I'm not even going to say what it is. So what do you say? This is bottom up processing. This is a perfect example, unless you just blow me away and tell me that you've got Connor McDavid rookies. What do you think this is? Tell me about this card. This is a visual or a sensory look at the issue. Can you tell me something? What do you think? It's a card. It's got some, looks like hockey.
One's got time on it, is it? I can't tell.
See? But it looks like hockey players. Just visual. All you can see is, looks like a couple hockey players, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it looks like the Boston Bruins. You don't even know that. It's hard to tell because their crest is gone.
This is black, yellow, and
Right, gold. Yeah, that's right. So this is bottoms up. You look at it and go, yeah, well, it looks like a hockey card. It's got a couple players. I don't even know who they are. But me, I'm top-down processing when it comes to hockey cards. Because I can look at this and I can apply what I know first. See, Philip was bottom up. He didn't get it. He didn't know what Christ was going to do. So all he could do is look at it. 5,000 men, get out the calculator, women and children, all those crumb-eating kids, what are they going to do? Not a chance. 8 months. That's all he could do is apply what he knew and his visual senses. Now, me, on the other hand, I can look at this and go, wow, this is a Joe Thornton, Sergei Samsonov, dual jersey card. Jerseys this is pieces that came out of their jersey. Yeah, see? Bottoms up. Bottoms up.
I thought it was a clock. One was blank.
This is the best illustration I've ever done.
It means nothing.
Yeah. Okay, you couldn't tell me. And I'm not cutting you down because you don't know. I would never expect that. But this is top down when it comes to me. Sergei Samsonov, Joe Thornton, went in the first round. I think it was 1-3 back in whatever, 1997. I think they went first and third overall. They both went to the Bruins. These right here are pieces of their game. These are game-worn jerseys, cutouts from what they played in a hockey game, and they're put in there. And this is out of 650. This is card number 427. This is luxury suite made by, I think, Fleer. It is Fleer. And I like Upper Deck, so I don't know everything about Fleer. But this is like, I can tell you lots about hockey cards. And this is probably worth a little bit. But anyways, I know a little bit. I know top-down processing when it comes to this. Do I know top-down about changing a motor? No. Bottoms up. Right? I know bottoms up. Do I know, this is what I'm trying to say. Philip was bottoms up. I don't know what we're going to do. But Andrew said, here's a boy. And I have seen what Jesus has done. And this boy's got a little teeny bit of stuff. But it's not much. But I've seen what he can do with a little. And that's top down. I've seen it. I have seen the work of God in my life. Where I've seen him healed. I've seen him heal people. I've seen him heal me. I have faith that he will do it again. I have seen him move mountains in my life. I know he's going to do it again. I have taken out a couple Goliaths along the way. I have hit them with my sling, and I got my sling again. I've been there, done that. I know he can do it again. This is top-down theology, not this bottoms-up processing. And so I know what he can do. I've seen it before. And I'm going off my knowledge of what he can do. And as a church, what is our processing? Are we bottoms up? Or are we tops down? We know what God can do. We need to be top-down processing. That should be that's not a theology. It's a tops-down. I know what God has been in the past. He has been there with me in the past, and because of that, I know he's going to do it. I've seen him do it. God, Jesus, we got a boy. He's got a little bit of food. And so he gets it there. He knows something. And Jesus knows something. And Jesus has been there before. He knows something because he's been somewhere that we've never been. He's been with the Father in heaven. So, let's track back to, you guys still with me? I know something with this tops-down processing. I know that he can do it because he's done it in the past. Andrew's like, I know he can do something with this. I've seen him do it in the past. Philip kind of missed it. Sorry, Philip, but it's okay. I would have made that mistake. I talked to Sarita at physiotherapy. She said, I can't blame him at all. But Jesus, I know something, and Jesus knows something, and he knows something because he's been somewhere where I haven't been, or where they haven't been. He's been with the Father in heaven. And so, going back, there was this time in the burning bush, and Moses was there, and he had to have some answers, and he had some questions to be answered, and he wanted to know how, and he talked to God, and God didn't tell him how, he told him who. I am, period. I am. Is that always kind of, that's kind of like in one way, I am what? But he is the great I am. Where you are in trouble, where you don't know what to do, there I am. That's where I relish, to be in those spots where you are hurting and you have no clue. I am. But it goes further than that. This was a very sacred word. This is the name of God. I am. Ooh, you gotta be careful around this. But then Jesus talks about it. You want to know who I am is? And so he starts here. He said, I am the bread of life. And this made a lot of enemies when he started saying this kind of stuff. With the Pharisees and the Sadducees, he made some enemies. But he said, he starts out, and this is first of 7 times in the Gospels, he talks about, it goes back to, God says, I am. Moses wants to know how. God says, who? I am. Well, let's take it a little bit further, and Jesus says, I am the bread of life. If you are hungry, come to me. Do you want to trust me, or do you want to trust stuff? I am the bread of life. And then he goes on further. He said, I am the bread of life. He says, I am the light. I am the light of the world. The world will never be dark enough that you will not have my light as a guide in your world you live. The world will never be dark enough that this church will not shine as a beacon for him. I am the light of the world. And then he goes from there and he says, I am the gate. You want to know what I am means? I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. Then I am the gate. You're on the outside? Come through me. You're on the inside and you need to get out? Go through me. If you feel left behind, if you feel left out of it, if you feel separated, I am the gate. I am the way in, I am the way out. You need a way out? I'm the guide. You need a way in? I'm the guide. I am the gate, but I am more than the gate. I am the shepherd. I'm the shepherd. You need somebody to follow, you follow me. You're going through hard times, follow me. You're going through toil, follow me. You're going through pestilence, follow me. You're going through good times, follow me. You're going up over the mountain, follow me. You're in the valley, by the way, there's better grass down here, you're going to grow in the valley, but follow me. It doesn't feel like it, follow me. I am the good shepherd. So we're finding out. Jesus said, he knew something. We know something from top down processing. I've seen him do it. Andrew says, I know I've seen him do it. But Jesus knows even more because he's been to a place that we haven't been. And he's expounding on who I am. I am, right? The bread of life. I am it continues on. I am the shepherd. I'm running out here. I'm forgetting the rest here. But I think that was number 4. I'm the gate. I am the resurrection. Jesus says, I'm the resurrection. Even if you are dead, if I say get up, you'll get up. And we see that in the Bible. And so he comes late, right, to Lazarus, and they're upset because you're supposed to be here. If you would have shown up earlier, my brother would not have died. But he said, you thought you had me rented, you had me appointed for a healing session, but now it's time for you to find out a little deeper meaning of me. I am not only the great healer, I am the resurrection. I am the resurrection. And then he continues on and he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. There is no other way. You want to get to heaven? I am the way. You want to meet God in heaven? You want to be with me? I am the way. I am the truth. You've tried every other truth. It has failed you. I am the truth. And I am the life. If you have life in me, if you choose me, you will have eternal life with me in heaven. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And because of this, we are seated in heavenly places with him. Because of who he is, who I am. I am I am the gate, the sheep. We go on and on and on about all this, but that's who he is, and we are seated in heavenly places, and because of that, I think we should have top-down processing. I'm the bread of life. I'm going to say it one more time. I'm the bread of life. I am the light of the world. Gate, I'm the shepherd, I'm the resurrection, and I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So Philip, will you just be quiet and give me that calculator? I want to smash it. Because you're thinking bottoms up. And here is, you're asking about a problem with bread, and bread is actually standing in front of you right now. And you're worried that you're going to run out of bread, but the one who says that he is the bread is standing in front of you. So Philip, and I don't blame you. Sarita said, well, I can't blame you. I'd probably do that, and I may do it too. I may, make that mistake. And it's not Philip's fault, really, because he had it mostly right, except that he failed to remember his greatest resource, and it was Jesus Christ himself. And he kind of overlooked how awesome Christ is. And so Andrew, he just says, here's this boy. And I think verse 9, he says, here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. So he must have believed something, right? Because if you just saw some kid with 5 loaves and just a little bit, and you saw all these people, I would have just like, he knew that he could do something. He's got these 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But he says to Jesus, how far will they go among so many? So we have to lean in. We have to look down. And then sometimes we have to speak up. And so Andrew's speaking up. How far will they go? But yet I still have enough faith to give this to you. I think you can do something. But how far can it go? And there's no scripture in here, but I think almost in a way it's a kind of a missing scripture. I'm not saying it's missing, but I'm saying Jesus may very well have looked at him when he said, how far do you think this will go? You want to find out? You want to find out? Put it in my hands. Put that stuff in my hands. Because I will multiply it. You saw how many fish you caught in your boat when I wasn't in there. But when I got connected to you, your boat started sinking because there was so many fish. Put it in my hands. Put your finances in his hands. Switch ownership. Put your forgiveness. Put these issues that you have in your life that you're struggling with. He says, put them in my hands. Switch ownership. Give it to me. And watch what will happen. And so this is very well what happened to him. I know that all my needs are, how does that verse go? All my needs shall be supplied according to his glorious riches. My needs will be supplied. He is all these things. I am all these things. He's been to a place where we have never been, and it is top down. I've seen him before work in my life, and Andrew's seen it. Why would he ever put us in this position? I think Andrew's like, he would have never put us here if he didn't already have a plan. And so that's with us. Where you are, God still has a plan for you. In whatever jam, you might feel like you're in a jam. God is there, and he already knows what he's going to do. He's never once said, only when he's messing with you, the Messiah, only when he messes. What are we going to do? But it says he already knew what he was going to do. And then it was all collected up with 12 baskets. Where did these 12 baskets come from? Maybe Jesus put them in the boat as he went over. Why? Because he already knew what he was going to do. So when it comes to us, when it comes to the 5,000 people, feeding them, how's this going to happen? It's, faith, I guess, without works is, kind of dead. And so he wants to stretch us. He wants us to be stretched. And so he will ask us, he will put us in a position. But he is in control. Trust him. He already knows